Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon and best wishes to all of us, ladies and gentlemen. Before we start this FGD and to avoid any disturbances, we would like to ask you to turn off your microphone during the presentation session. And we would like to inform you that this FGD will be recorded. Thanks.
Our honorable speaker.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Our honorable speaker and our participants. First of all, let's say thanks to God to participate in today's FGD session. And we from Beta Club would like to give you the greatest gratitude to all participants in this room for your enthusiasm participating in today's FGD session. My name is Alfidia Rahman Nasa Juhanda, Statistics Department Batch.
Okay, so we are the moderator of today's FGD. We are very pleased to see you here and welcome all of you to this FGD. Next, I would like to read today's agenda. This FGD will be divided into 4 sessions. The first one, of course, that we have been started, will be the opening. The second one will be the presentation. The third one will be the discussion. And the last one, of course, will be the closing. For today's FGD, we are going to discuss about how to reduce inequality within and among countries. But before we move to our presentation session, may I introduce to you our speaker this afternoon. Joining us today is an amazing person. She was the second most outstanding student of Faculty of Humanities at Universitas Indonesia. She got the best delegate as highest award of SOSHUM at Economics MUN, and also honorable mention as the second highest award of UNICEF at Jakarta International MUN 2021, and become the Secretary of General of Foreign Policy Community of Indonesia, UI MUN 2021. Now she is also interning at Department of Tourism and Creative Economy of DKI Jakarta as marketing team.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Kak Ahsya Devinka. Halo Kak Ahsya.
Hi.
How are you today, Kak?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. How about you?
I'm good also. I'm good too, thank you. It is so good to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, without further ado, I would like to give the time to our speaker for presenting. Kak Ahsya, the time is yours.
Thank you, MC and moderator. All right, so hi everyone. I'm Ahsya Devinka. It is so nice to see you this morning. And right now we're going to discuss about SDG number 10, reduce inequality within and among countries. Next slide. So, although the moderator has introduced me before, but I will introduce myself. Once again, my name is Ahsya Devinka. People usually call me Ahsya or Sia, and I'm undergraduate student majoring Dutch studies in University of Indonesia. I'm also the most outstanding student, and right now I'm currently at Netherlands to pursue my summer course here at Amsterdam. And next slide. All right, so in today's sessions, we are going to discuss about 5 things. First is the definitions of inequality. Second is the impact of inequality. Third is SDGs 10 importance as specialized SDGs on reducing inequality. And fourth is the international cooperations and development policies concept of international solidarity. And last but not least is Indonesia's development policy on SDGs number 10. All right. So here's the first question. What is inequality? Maybe if I could ask some of you, can you raise your hand if you know what is inequality? You don't need to open the Google, just like, what do you think about inequality? What is inequality for you? So maybe you could raise your hand, any of you. Going once, going twice. Is there anyone want to answer this question? Going thrice. All right. So respect for human rights, highly relevant for each person everywhere and also anytime. At the same time, it's a closer look is necessary on society as a whole and the respective levels on equality. Because growing inequality has significant impact on societies and also has the potential to undermine democracy. For the first time ever, the global community has agreed upon the goal on reducing the inequality within and among countries, or we call it as SDG number 10. But the question is, once again, what is inequality? So next slide. So inequality is the state of not being equal, especially in status, rights, opportunities, and its concept is very much at the heart of social justice theories. It's based on the UNDP 2013. And also it has diverse meaning actually to different people. So each person has each inequality and it is prone to misunderstanding in public discourse. However, some distinctions are universal, such as economic inequality and refers to disparities in income and also money, or more broadly is living situations. And other further differentiate between a right-based legalistic approach to inequality and also the inequality of rights and also associated obligations, such as when a person is not treated equally under the law or when they have uneven access to the political power just because of their race or their religions or their background. Next slide. So here, there's a difference between inequality of outcomes and also inequality of opportunity. But which one is more important to be addressed, or which one is the most like the easier way to tackle the inequality itself? So the first one is inequality of outcomes. So people are not equally wealthy materially or in terms of their total living situations. There is inequality of outcomes. So as we know that the debate over the economic inequality has largely come down to 2 points that have been mentioned before, the inequality of outcomes and also the inequality of opportunity. And one's primary concern in the disparity in outcomes in the material aspect of well-being, which can be caused by both ability and also effort, as well as external factors, such as I've been mentioned before, like the race, family backgrounds, gender, exposed or achievement-oriented thinking is used to this viewpoint. So it's for the inequality of outcomes. So it's something that you cannot control, basically. And the second perspective is the inequality of opportunity. So the second perspective is focused solely on external factors that have an impact on one's prospective outcomes, and it's concerned with the opportunity inequality. And the viewpoint is the possibility for success. So the equality is not means of living, but actually it is the actual opportunities of living that give people freedom to pursue a life their own choosing. So me personally, so I think that equality is not a means of living, but the actual opportunities of living that give people the freedom to pursue a life their own choosing. So in inequality of outcomes, is such as like the religions, race, background is something that you cannot control. But inequality of opportunity, I believe that actually people has the same opportunity, but it would it back again on each respective persons whether they will use the opportunity or not. And next slide. So, why is it important to be addressed? Why are we gathering here to discuss reducing the inequalities within countries? Because it is very important, and the answer is on the next slide. So, the impact of inequality, actually, there are two big problems. First is the economic disparities and also inadequate social safety nets. And second is gender equality and also women's rights. Next slide. All right. As we know that there is economic disparities and also inadequate social safety nets. So the poorest and also most vulnerable populations have been struck the most by the COVID-19. As we know that the COVID-19 has hit us from 2019 till now, and it has widened already existing inequalities and economic disparities and also inadequate social safety nets that leave vulnerable groups bearing the brunt of the crisis have come to the light of a result. So economic disparities, it could be also impacted the inequalities in many ways, such as inequalities in social, political, and also economic spheres have also exacerbated the pandemic's effects. And also, next slide. And second, it's also important is gender equality and also women's rights. So as we know that we were fighting of the gender equality, but because of COVID-19, due to the pandemic crisis of COVID-19, so the modest advancements in women's rights and also gender equality over the previous decades are also in risk because of the pandemic situations or the post-pandemic situations right now. And the effects of the COVID-19 are magnified for women and also girls, merely by virtue of their sex throughout every domain, from health to economy, security to the social protections. And also due to this, the disproportionate representations in the pandemic's most hard-hit informal vulnerables and also low-paid sectors like the hospitality, food industry, and also retail, women have been disproportionately impacted by job loss. So the pandemic has simultaneously increased the unpaid caregiving, particularly among women, and also impacted to the number of the poverty and also unemployment of the woman itself. Next slide. So in the next, right now we're discussing about the impact of inequality, but in social aspects inequality. So the cost of inequality, with cost being considered comprehensively and including, for instance, mental health, physical health, and also life expectancy, obesity, educational performance, adolescent births, greater rates of crime, violence, and also antisocial behavior. So as we know that Wilkinson's and also Pickett provided detailed evidence of the social dimensions of inequality by revealing the substantial levels of inequality in incomes and also revenue are the indicators of the basic problems within societies. So back again, the problems right now is the revenue and also the income GDP of each country. And the cost of the inequality itself, it's being understood as a holistic way, including, for example, the things that have been mentioned before. Next slide. And second is the economic dimensions of the inequality. So we have been taught about the social disparity in inequality, and right now is the economic dimensions. It's also the most important things and also the root causes of the problems. As we know that since the beginnings of the civilizations, society have been made up of people from different social classes, as evidenced by their respective incomes or asset or inherited or earned by individual work. And finding the perfect equilibrium is still a challenge for society. And if rising inequality is not properly monitored or addressed, it could lead to various types of political, economic, social catastrophe. At the same time, data are not publicly released in many countries, including our countries, Indonesia, and also surveys tend to underestimate the income and also wealth of the richest individuals. Tax havens on all continents in the middle of oceans means that some information is not made publicly. So it could be like made up information from the government of our country. Next slide. All right. So the third one is inequality in ecological aspect. In addition to the social, economic dimensions of inequality, there is a third dimension that is utmost importance, and it is the ecological dimensions of inequality. So the vast majority of people in the world, urban poor living in mega cities, are in the poor rural areas, from the big states to the most vulnerable states, from Netherlands to Indonesia, and in any country. So poor people and also poor countries are suffering the most from the effect of the climate change, as it is affect them disproportionately due to their geographic positions and also their high socioeconomic vulnerability. So Aldice's countries are threatened the most by drought, rising sea levels, hurricanes, and also landslide, including our countries. So as we know that Western countries is the ones actually who created the fossil fuels and also another things, but we, as the developing countries, we also receive the impact from that things. And it's not equal from us because we don't have the technological means and also another means to tackle that issue. And next slide is SDGs stands importance as a specialist SDGs on reducing inequality. So finally, like all of the countries have the same purposes and also goals to reduce the inequalities within countries. So here's some points. First, SDG 10, most interestingly, so SDG 10 has targets for the United Nations member states on consensus of the broad range of topics relating to the inequality, such as, but not limited to, first is achieving and sustaining income growth of the bottom of 40% of the populations at a rate higher than the national average. Second is empowering and also promoting the social political inclusions of all. And third is ensuring equal opportunity and reducing inequalities of outcome. Fourth is adopting policies progressively achieving greater equality. Fifth is improving the regulations and monitoring of global financial markets and also institutions, and strengthening the implementations of such regulations. And next is facilitating orderly, safe, regular, and also responsible migrations and mobility of the people. So, as you know that all of these articles aims to provide the reductions of the inequalities within countries from the legal development perspective. And we need the international solidarity and also legal consequences of the SDGs number 10 and also progress in reporting SDGs. So that's how we can implement the SDGs number 10 itself. And progress on SDGs number 10, due to complexity of the agenda, official UN progress reporting on SDG 10 is difficult task till right now. So, for the national governments, local governments, also regional and international organizations, civil society, and also the commercial sector, to the general public to monitor progress toward the SDGs, high quality statistics are essential, and we need the international cooperations and also development policies concept of the international solidarity. And also, among the United Member States, it is understood that reducing the inequality calls for system-wide engagement and must involve all the UN entities, all the UN bodies, NGO, and also NPO, and it is clearly a major task for all divisions for the inclusive social development and also Department of the Economic Social Affairs, or we call it DESA, to work on the reductions of the inequality. Next slide. So, in the history in 1945, the idea of the solidarity served as the fundamental tenet of the United Nations Charter. In accordance with the Article 1 of the UN Charter, of course, one of the most important articles in the UN Charter, the organization's goals include fostering goodwill among nations and also achieving international cooperations in order to resolve global issues for economic, social, cultural, or human nature, including inequalities within countries. Next slide. So, how's Indonesia's development policy on SDGs number 10? Because we are Indonesia's citizens and we are living in Indonesia, so we will be focused on Indonesia and what Indonesia can do. So in the social protection system is the most important thing to be addressed, especially amidst the COVID-19 pandemics, because some of the countries, so they applied the austerity measures, so they cut the social spending of the countries such as healthcare system and also education and also labor rights, housing. But we must be grateful because actually Indonesia has a good social protection system compared to another country. But unfortunately, the national poverty rate declined from 11.13% in 2015 to 9.20% in 2019, which is a good thing. But due to the pandemic of COVID-19, in the previous year, in 2019, till right now, we're still like in the post-pandemic situations, it climbed to 10.19% in 2022. So actually, it's already a big number at 2015, but it decreased and then it increased again, and it's bringing the poverty level back to where it was 3 years earlier. And the most affected demographic, including women, children, and those living in rural areas, and also the elderly, poverty rates among the children have grown from 11.76% in 2019 to 12.23% in 2022. Next slide. So what are the problems? I highlighted 3 problems of our countries, and first is the alignment of the National Development Agenda with the Sustainable Development Goal. So SDGs are based on the inclusion principle. SDGs are not exclusive. It's supposed to be inclusive. Therefore, they represent a joint effort by state and also non-state entities, and it is obvious that the government cannot successfully carry out development on its own, and the government collaborate to achieve the SDGs with the corporations, charities, civil organizations, the media, universities, and also think tanks like this. So, next slide. Well, actually, like by implementing the SDGs, especially SDGs number 10, Indonesia kills 2 birds in 1 stone, namely the implementations of the National Development Agenda while maintaining our global commitment. So, the second problem is the institutional government. Engagement among all stakeholders and also non-business as usual attitude are needed to be addressed. to the disruptions in the accomplishments of SDGs targets, especially SDGs number 10, because right now we are specifically discussing SDGs number 10. And the difficulty lies in focusing all efforts on achieving the SDGs in a way that involves everyone at all levels, and the national to decentralized subnationals. But we as youth, we can do many things, but we cannot impact the society significantly because we are not the stakeholders. That's why we need to work together and also collaborate with the stakeholders so we can help the communities and also the societies to grow bigger. Next slide. So second is the economic, social, and environment policies and implementations. So the Ministry of the Home Affairs has released RPGMD for implementations in subnational territories or subnational medium-term development plan in order to create a planning format for the accomplishments of the SDGs and sustainable reporting for business. And also the Ministry of the National Development Planning or BAPENAS collaborated with the Financial Services Authority and the Indonesian Stock Exchange and also the GRI. There are no 23rd SDG centers operating in Indonesia, and that's great. But SDG centers are centers of the excellence of the SDGs located in the universities. So in many universities, SDG centers is the centers of excellence of the SDGs located at universities, while the universities can teach, deliver, and also social responsibility activities, generate knowledge, conduct research, and offer cross-disciplinary policy suggestions with the help of the SDG Center. Right, I'm so sorry for the inconvenience. And next, so the third problem is the accountability of the Indonesians SDG implementations and also commitment. So I personally think that this is the hardest problem that we are facing right now because the accountability is very important. So both the government and also non-state entities periodically monitor and also evaluate the national level progress toward the RAN and also RAD targets of the SDGs. And this offer change for better planning and also executions of the policies, programs, and also activities toward accomplishing SDGs. But unfortunately, actually, like we have to voluntarily report that Indonesia submitted to the United Nations, but unfortunately, the United Nations cannot monitor. I mean, like they cannot monitor every country. So it will be based on the reports that has been submitted by the country itself, and we cannot. And also the accountability of the Indonesian government itself, like we don't know the accountability whether it is good or not, and the UN cannot do anything about it because it will be violate the sovereignty of our country. So it remains it remains of our biggest problem right now. Next slide. So here are the challenges. So first challenge is the issue of the final mile. The reductions get harder the lower the poverty rate is. As we know that right now the government of Indonesia, so they implemented pro budget deficit policy. So it went they are not cutting the social spending funds for our society, but it will also it is also increase the poverty rate in our country, but it will get better in 3 years because the pro budget deficit policy is for 3 years, and it occurs because of the efforts of the combat poverty must reach the most remote areas and also other vulnerable populations that are difficult to reach. As we know that in Indonesia itself, there is a gap between cities, like cities Jakarta probably, and also another cities in Papua or in East Java. So there is a gap between cities in Indonesia, and also there is a gap between countries, developing countries, and also developed countries. And it is hard to address the inequality if we have the high number of the poverty. Next. And second is targeting accuracy of the social protections program. So I've told you before that actually Indonesia has a good social protection program. Like we have BPJS and also KIP, KIS. I mean, if we compare to other countries in African countries or even United States of America, so United States of America, they don't have social protection system for their citizens. So the citizens, they have to pay for their basic healthcare and also for their educations, and also in Africa. So countries in Africa right now, they're facing hard problem, especially in educations. So people, the children cannot access the basic educations because the government cut their social spending. But Indonesia, we have a good social protections, but the implementations of the social protections, it's not that good. So we have the instrument, but for the implementation itself to address the inequality, we need the efforts to update the integrated social welfare data in all districts and also municipalities, because we have to make sure that the funds, the social protection funds that we give to our citizens is on the right, is on the right people or on the right communities. So it reach the most vulnerable groups in our society. Next slide. Third is securing strong, inclusive economic growth to mobilize resources for poverty reductions. And the economy must grow even if Indonesia's economy is currently moving towards new normal pace. And it will be exceedingly difficult to return to the 7% annual growth rate seen between 1918 and also 1919, because like, as you know, right now we're applying pro-budget deficit. So we need to repay our loans, as well as we need to develop our economic situations in our own country. Next slide. High inequality, which is associated to the unequal access to fundamental services and also infrastructures, particularly for the poorest group, as well as occurring not only in monetary terms, as evident of the non-inclusive economic growth, short-term financial aspects, and also long-term multidimensional poverty elevations are adversely affected by inequality. So for short-term aspect, it's a little bit kind of economic things, but for short-term, for the short-term financial aspect, right now we are Indonesian government applying for budget deficit, and for multidimensional aspect, like the government of Indonesia could increase the tax so we can give more funds to the most vulnerable groups and we can reduce the inequalities. And last but not least, low social mobility causes significant and also enduring inequality. According to a recent study, kids from lower income homes would have 85 to 90% less money as adults than kids from wealthier families. And of course, it impacted to their, we could say like to their future, to their educations, like how they can get a good educations when they have less money than the children on the wealthier families. And that's the thing that we need to address in order so we can reduce the inequalities, not only within countries, between developing and developed countries, but in our own countries, because there is also a gap in our own countries. Next. Oh, we still have another one. All right. I'm so sorry. So extreme informality, since the lack of social protections to shield them from numerous shocks during the COVID-19 pandemic, and also informal laborers were more likely to experience poverty. So we're also facing the human rights violations, further labor rights. And next slide. This will be the last slide. It's extremely vulnerable even if the national poverty rate fell into the single digits in 2019, but Indonesia still has a sizable vulnerable population from the economic standpoint. And for these populations, even relatively minor economic and social shocks are sufficient to drive them into the poverty. So due to the inequalities that we are facing right now, we're also facing human rights violations in many aspects such as healthcare, education, labor rights, housing, and also another social protection such as mental health system, mental health of our people. So from one thing, it could be impacted to many aspects as we can see right now. So that's why we need to address this important issue, reducing inequalities within countries, and we need to work together hands in hands to achieve this goal by 2030, which we still have 8 years. Thank you. Is there any questions or discussions? So go back to the moderator and MC.
So thank you very much, Kak Ahsya, for such insightful, interesting presentation, right? And before we go to our discussion session, most likely I would like to give a short resume for this material. Yeah, as we have given the material from Kak Ahsya, we know that there is so much inequality in current world, cause of many problems, and that inequality itself has brings so many impact in our world right now. Not only in economic but also in social and even in ecologist sectors. So the United Nations have already made the guideline policy in SGDs, especially point 10 in this case. Well, it's of course the responsibility for our Indonesian government to implement it in our country. But I think that this issue is not only uh, the government responsibility; it's for us too, as well, especially for us as the academic backgrounded person. Well, we can't do it in a massive movement right into our whole nation, but we can do it in our small environment neighborhood, right? Of course, in order to make a better world, not just for us, but for the future generation, the world that there is no inequality, the world there is no segregation towards any differences that exist in the world right now, and the world where every person has this equal responsibility, equal right, and equal opportunity in order to become the best version of us. Well, maybe that's where what we could conclude from Kaasia's presentation. So, Alfie, what will we do next?
Okay, thank you, Akmal, for the short resume. Now we will continue to the discussion session. This session will be divided into two terms, and for the first term we will open for two opinions or questions.
Okay, for the audience, if you have any question or opinions, such as a different point of view, of course, please turn on your microphone and camera if there's no other trouble. Okay, we have already someone was raised his hand. His hand. Okay, Zahid.
The time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Miss Ahsya, for the presentation. It's very good, but we are, as a human, are different genetics, different geography, different climate, different tradition, and many different things. Different start in life, different reach. Do you believe that the world will be really a place without inequality? Because as far as I know, the only equality that can we pursue is only equality of opportunity. Even equality of opportunity cannot be achieved if you have no wealth, right? Like, of course, Bill Gates can acquire this, while I can't. While I maybe can enroll in this training, enroll in this academy because I have like no money, but rich people can acquire something that that I can't do. And it's equality of opportunity. Do you believe that we really can achieve that with 8 billion people in this planet? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Zahid, for the question. So maybe I will ask Kak Asya first. Kak Asya, would you like to answer it first, or waiting for another question so that you could answer two?
All right. So maybe I could answer the question first. Is that right?
The time is yours, Kak.
All right. So actually, the purpose of the I want to say that that was a great question by Farhan, and also very interesting because I also felt that actually. But the purpose of the SDGs number 10, reducing the inequalities. So it's not that we want all the mankind to live at heaven, but we want to make it less hell for them. Of course, like we cannot make all the people having the same standards of life, having the same standard of educations, of living, and that's true. The one thing that we can do is instead of the inequalities of outcomes, the inequality of opportunity is much more accessible for everyone, and it would be depends on each respective person back again, because I mean, although if the people are not wealthy, but if they are willing to do that or to achieve their goals, they will have it by whatever that it takes. So, and also for the 8 billion of people, so as I said earlier, that here United Nations purpose is we cannot make all the mankind's enjoy the heaven, but we wanted to make less hell for them because it's kind of impossible if like we want to reducing inequalities, especially like we only have 8 years left, but we could make it less equal at least for anyone. So here's of course like there is a difference between the persons that come from the healthy wealthy family and the person who come from poor family. But the point that we are talking right now on this discussions is regarding the social protections of the people. So we're talking about the basic healthcare, we're talking about the basic educations, the basic labor rights, the basic housing. So how the government and also how the government could provide it to our people. And I believe that right now we already have a basic healthcare system and also education system. So all people, especially in Indonesia, they could access it. They could access for the health and also they could access the educations, but back again. So it will be based on each respective individual because it's something that we cannot control. But as the government, like they're trying to do their best to give the social protection system. So I hope that's answering your questions, but there will be always inequality within people and comparing is a portion. So yeah, that's my answer.
So the focus is to make less help for everyone. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the answer.
Okay, thank you Kak Asya for the answer. So basically the answer is the purpose of inequality SDGs number 10 is not making not making the heaven for everyone, but but okay if you have any question, we have still have one question or opinion for the audience. Any question?
Right. So I guess the audience still arranging the question. If we, maybe are there any question that you would ask to Kasha?
Okay, maybe I want to ask the what is it? Pertanyaan lanjutan, the continuous continuous question. For the Zahid question, that if you know, are you know, do you know what countries that satisfy the apa ya, cocok gitu dengan with the, I don't know how to say. Akmal, can you replace me the question? I know you know the question, Har.
Okay,
I'm too
okay.
nervous. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Maybe I get the point from Alfie's point of view. He's trying to ask, is there any country out there that is the most suitable one to become the best example for us Indonesia to become yes, the best example on how to do the right thing to reduce this inequality, Kak? Maybe that's the question. Okay, time is yours.
All right, thank you for a nice question. So maybe if we can compare it based on the data as well, Western countries are the ones who has less inequality in their society. And it's almost equal, but not like 50-50, but like, yeah, people are almost living in the same living conditions here. So if I could mention, based on my experience itself in Netherlands, so in Netherlands and also Western countries, the society are almost equal. But okay, so here's the thing. So we have the different system between like Indonesia, if Netherlands, if we can compare it, the education system is also different. So in Netherlands itself, so they already created a system that make everything is equal, and also the government already acknowledged that not everyone could like not everyone could go to the university, so instead they go to the vocational high school, but the outcomes of it, so all of them become a financially stable persons, or they're wealthy, and also the income in the Netherlands itself, so it's also almost equal, whether like the people whether the people who has the master degree, and also the people who also the people who just had the vocational education. But the outcomes is like not that much if we compare to Indonesia, as we know that in Indonesia, the ones with the high educations, the people who have the high educations, so they always tend to be more wealthier if we compare it to the people who don't receive educations at all or just graduated from high school. But in Netherlands, the thing is different. Although that they graduated from high school, it's called HAVO, if I'm not mistaken. So it's like after the vocational school or like high school, but like it's like systematic after that, like they already have work or job placement, and the outcomes or the wage is like not that difference. So all people can afford many things that maybe in our country is considered as a high level of living, but all people here are almost the same, whether they are educated or not educated, and whether they came from the white race or like they are from the multicultural. So yeah, that's the example. So Western countries are most likely to be the ones who can reduce the inequality, and actually maybe like they did it like some of the countries right now.
All right. So, this interesting point of view from like yes. So, Alfie, is the question have already answered your question?
The answer is yeah. The answer is already satisfied my question. Thank you, Kak Asya, for the answer. Okay. It seems like we still have time to go, so we can open the second term for another maybe two question or opinions again. So, guys, are there any questions or opinion? Okay. Ireno is raising hand, so maybe time is yours.
Hello.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity. So my question is, as we talk about inequality, I believe that gender or racial equality is one of the problem of the equality in the nation worldwide. And my question is, how could gender equality impact for social, political, and economic condition in the nation, and how can it be reduced and we can come back to overcome it? Thank you. Just it.
Okay, thank you, Ireno, for the questions. Next, let's hear answer from Kak Asya.
All right. So as you know, there is a disparity between men and women, and how it could affect to the our like the situations of the inequality right now. So based on the data itself, we need to empowering women, because women tend to see as the most vulnerable group, and they're receiving the unemployment the most, especially in this COVID-19 pandemic. So when we empower women, we also empower the people. So that's the thing. But like our society tend to see that men are most powerful than women, and then women cannot work or receive the same equals of labor rights because like they are women. So back again, like it's still our problem right now to addressing this gender inequality, but we really need to empowering women, because it's our fundamental success to reduce the inequality in a global way. And sorry, what was the second questions, Ireno?
Okay, I'm sorry. The second question is, how can we reduce the gender equality or racial equality inequality for and how can we come back to overcome it?
Oh, all right. So the first answer is going to be policy. So we need the policy. So we will have the legal basis to do the thing that we think that we could help to reduce the inequality, especially gender inequality in our countries. And if we're talking about the policy, it's not something that UN can mandate it to its country, because back again, it would be violate the sovereignty of the country, but it's on the national basis, national policy of the country. That's why in my presentations, I talk about the alignment of the national policy to the SDG number 10. So first of all, we need to change the policy. That's why there are so many students that pursuing their master abroad to study about the public policy, because currently right now we still don't have a good policy yet to address this gender inequality. And also second thing is the campaign, because what we can do as a youth is almost we promoting the gender inequality, but it gives an impact to our society, but not significantly. That's why we need to work hand in hand with the stakeholders, because stakeholders is the ones who has the powers. So although we as think tanks, we have proposed several things and also several drafts, but we could not implement it because we don't have any powers. So the answer would be policy making of our of our nation. I hope that answer your question.
Okay. My next question is: did you believe that our policies is um, ideal for a gender equality? In your opinion, just your opinion.
Okay, if in my opinion itself, we still need to work addressing inequalities and also to create a better policy, because our policy right now, so they're not addressing the problem directly. They just like, I don't know what is the subword for this, but like, okay, I won't say it here, but the policy right now just not directed to problems and cannot answer the problem directly. That's why we need more policy making and also more policy that could address the problem specifically, especially regarding the gender-based issue and also gender-based violence. As we know that we have like crisis regarding the gender-based violence, and our government just ignore all of our voices and also our opinions. So I hope like in the future, we as the next generations, we could create a better policy to address the gender gap in our countries and also the gender-based violations, because it's still happening and it's still happening around us, even like in the university. So that's my answer.
Okay, Elena, is there any answer, or are you satisfied with the answer?
Yeah, I satisfied with the answer is enough.
Okay, thank you, Kak Asya and Elena. Kak Asya for the answer and Elena for the questions. Are there any more questions or opinions that you can ask to Kak Asya? Okay, seems like PS is facing her hand, so the time is yours. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Alfie, for the opportunity, and thank you, Kasia, for the explanation. As you mentioned before, one of the inequality impact is the social safety net and also social protection. And I've also read some information that there are informal and non-standard forms of employment that experience this inequality in terms of social safety nets. And also they're often not eligible for several available programs, which is many young workers include in this group. So how to effectively reduce this inequality so that the young workers have the same opportunities to grow in terms of their professional career. Thank you.
All right. Can I answer the question?
Okay. Kami share, Kak.
All right. So social safety net remains our biggest problem right now, and our government is trying to solve the problem by giving the social protection systems in many ways, including the healthcare, educations, labor rights. But unfortunately, they haven't fulfilled their responsibility yet to our people. And that's right, that social safety nets, especially like the higher employment during the COVID-19 and also post-pandemic, has increased the poverty in our country. And what as we youth can do to address the informal workers. So first of all, actually I've made a paper regarding that. And first of all, we need to empower the informal workers so they could receive the same thing and also the basic necessity. So first we have to empower them and also promoting the same rights, and also provide three things actually, like legality, if they want to open any business or any MSMEs, because 70% of our economic right now, it's from the MSMEs, and we have a high rates of employment and that things, and it is influence our economic situations as well as the inequalities in our countries, and we have to provide legality and also assisting them. And the third of all, after we assisting them, we need to help them to promote the things that they have been working on. And also, Tias, could you repeat the question again? I think I haven't answered all the questions that you have addressed.
Okay, so how to effectively reduce this inequality so that the young workers have the same opportunities to grow in terms their professional career?
Okay, so it's about the young workers. That's interesting questions, because it is a broad view of the young workers, like what kind of young workers that you mean in these discussions. But I will just try to answer it. So how can we provide the same opportunity for them? As you know, that there's inequality in receiving opportunity. So as you know, that actually our government, I think like they have implemented like a vocational training for them, for the young people who cannot receive a higher educations, because as we know that in our country, like the people who receive the higher educations could get a better job. And what can we do to the young, especially informal workers? So of course, we as the university students, maybe we can do campaign and also give them trainings so they can open some kind of business, because right now the rate of unemployment in Indonesia is very high, and we need the short-term resolutions instead of the long-term resolutions for right now. So we can empower them by giving them vocational trainings, and also as well as teach them some knowledge regarding to what they interested the most. And we also need to work with stakeholders, because it will be based on the stakeholders, because our mandate is limited, because we only youth and we are the university students. But yeah, what we can do the least is we can empower them like to get a job. Do you still have any concern?
No, thank you, Ahsya.
Okay, thank you, Kasha, for the response, and thank you too for Tias for the question that has been asked. Well, looks like we got very active audience today, but yeah, unfortunately we have limited time today. So, ladies and gentlemen, finally we have come to the end of our discussion session today, and hopefully with this discussion we can change our view about how to reduce inequality within and among countries. And if you have any question and opinions that we didn't get to cover, or think of new opinions or questions, please contact Asya at the address shown on the screen. And we also will post the recording of this FGD on GSB's YouTube channel in a few days.
Once again, I would like to thank you to Ahsya for being our speaker for today's FGD session and for giving an insightful knowledge. It was a pleasure to have you with us, Kak. And also, thank you for the audience for your very active participation. Hopefully, the discussion will be remarkable. And for another, don't forget to fill the attendance that we've already shown in this Zoom screen. Also, we've sent in the chat room for your convenience.
Okay, and now we got to the last session in this FGD. Of course, that will be the closing. But before ending today's FGD, we will have a photo session, of course. For the audience, if you have no trouble in camera please turn on your camera and make your best pose. So action will help us to documentate this Zoom meeting. Action, are you ready?
Yes, we will wait for another person to open the camera.
And also for Hannah, maybe you can stop the share screen since
Is yes, can open the camera. Maybe there is no one else. I can now start the text picture. For the first slide, 3, 2, 1. And now then the second slide. 3, 2, 1. Thank you.
All right, so thank you very much, Akshan, for the help. And finally, on behalf of the Beta Club staff, I would like to express my greatest gratitude to all the participants for taking time out of your busy schedule to attend this FGD.
And also, we would like to apologize for any mistakes and mispronouncing that we did during the event. Thank you very much for the participation. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Please have a wonderful day, guys. Goodbye and see you later. And thank you, Asya, for having with us.
Thank you, Basha.
Thank you, everyone.